My name is Julio Bedell. I work here at Grounds for Sculpture as the manager of experiential programs in the education department. And this is our third, so we now have a series of Artists in Action. And this program became an expansion of our Artists in Action MEB Open Studios that we have typically in the spring, which fortunately we haven't had this last 2 years. So we've started with our local artists, resident artists, and also expanding to Trenton, Hamilton, and the New Jersey region, curated by Anya Mickey, who will be your host. And we're very excited for this series with Chee Bravo to have a demonstration, some artwork to look around. We're getting the hang of it. It's getting better every week. Bill in the back doing the sound. We're happy to have this production for you. And funny thing, I just want to share this morning, I live in Philadelphia and take the train in. So I'm waiting for the bus at the Trenton Trans Center to get here. And I noticed on the wall, I'm like, oh, there's artwork really looks familiar to me. Like, oh, I think it's Chee Bravo. Like, that's I'm going to talk about that tonight. That was a very fortuitous morning. The bus took a long time, so I checked them all out. There's quite a bit at the Trenton Transit Center, which I'm sure that they'll touch upon. Okay. So welcome again, thank you, and enjoy the evening.
That's wonderful, because we were actually just speaking about your installation over in Trenton down there.
Before that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming so much. My name is Anya Mickey. As Julio just mentioned, I am the curator for this project. We are so excited to be joined here today by Chee Bravo. We're going to be discussing her work and her process. We're going to get into an explanation of silkscreen printmaking. As Julio mentioned, we have a demo which some of you can feel free to participate in. And we're going to get into some concepts revolving around Chee's work. And then we'll do a short question and answer at the end. So I'm going to start off actually by reading a bit of Chee's bio. Chee Bravo is a printmaker and multimedia artist, born in Trinidad and Tobago, West Indies. Chee's artistic works ranges from two-dimensional works in printmaking and painting to three-dimensional bricolage to multimedia interactive installations. Her cumulative approach to her work reflects her traditional beginnings as a printmaker, her long career in graphic design, and her childhood growing up in the culturally diverse Caribbean islands before immigrating to the United States. So, now that you guys have like a little bit of a base to go from there, I just want to briefly share how I became acquainted more intimately with Chee's practice. I used to run an art gallery in downtown Trenton called the BSB Gallery, and there with my colleague Christy O'Connor, we used to run these very casual artist meetups. And it was kind of like a support group. People could come, we would put chairs in a circle, and everybody would bring the thing that they were working on, or maybe a proposal or something like that. And we would all sit down and everybody would talk about what it was that they were struggling with, what it was that they were interested in exploring, what it was that they couldn't figure out this material and they wanted some help with that. And Chee was a relatively active member of this group. She would come pretty religiously. It was a potluck style program, and she always brought some wonderful baked goods. And we would have painters, we would have digital artists, a pretty diverse group. And whenever Chee's turn would come, she'd bring these very large objects or very tiny sketchbooks. And she would sit and explain these aeronautical processes of how it is that she creates her work. And she would go into great depths about how this is my plan, and she'd show us her plan like in a little piece of paper, and she would say, and I'm going to do this, this, and this. It's going to be 45 colors, and then I'm going to go back, and I have to drive here, and then I have to go back over here. And we would all be like, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Everybody else has we all have sticks in our hands compared to Chee describing these very involved, very mathematical processes. And then she would come back the next week and she would have something finished. It would be like this big framed piece, and it'd be done. And she would tell us these long stories about how it took her till 4 o'clock in the morning and it was dead silent. And she was working and working and working, and she had all of these long problems, and it was very exciting for us as a group to watch this process unfold and watch her solve these really complicated issues that she faced. And there is something about really intimately knowing an artist, really being able to be there with a creative person as they they volunteer themselves to have specific issues, and then they have to work through those problems. And they struggle, and they have to find solutions, and the process of watching someone start something and then move throughout completion is a really, really beautiful thing to be able to see and to almost help someone participate in. And I hope that this conversation, although it will not be as organic, will be something kind of like all of our introduction to Chee's work at the artist beat-ups. I really hope that today we can kind of help inspire you guys the way that she helped inspire all of us with her processes and her meticulous planning. So without ado, thank you so much for joining me today, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And thank you to Grounds of Sculpture for putting this on. Yes. This is awesome.
So I'm just going to start off. Maybe some people here know, but it's a very involved process. Can you just give me like a toddler's explanation, like a very general explanation of the style of printmaking that you do?
Okay. Well, printmaking covers a huge range of processes. In fact, it falls into mainly 4 categories. You have stencil, you have planographic, you have relief, and you have intaglio. I do one of silkscreen, which falls into stencil. I graduated from college in BFA in lithography, and that falls into planographic. So even if you're a printmaker, you still don't know the whole gamut, and there's so much to learn because each one there are about over 20 different ways to make a print. There are all different ways you can make it, and it depends on, you can be an expert in lithography, but then when it comes to silkscreen and you have no idea what to do, because you use different processes, you do all different things, So you really have to kind of like narrow your desire and what you want to do and focus on it, and then maybe go from there. But you can also mix all the different processes, to come up with something unusual. Maybe a mono print or something like that.
Yes.
Right? But right now, I do silkscreen.
Okay.
And this is what you can see all around us.
Yes. Beautiful. Okay. And that's what we'll actually be doing a demo of today as well. So you guys will be able to get a very hands-on experience in the very mathematical process that she endeavors in. So why, you just mentioned that, in school you studied printmaking. What drew you to this process, to this practice?
It was different. It was new. It was something I've never done before. And I just wanted to expand my my artistic, So I decided just to, and one more thing about it, very important about printmaking is that you make editions. So as an artist, if you fall in love with your work, you can keep one and sell the rest, right? So that's what I really liked about it, because I love everything I do. So I want to keep it, I don't want to sell it. But when you do printmaking, you make editions, and they're all considered originals because you actually hand pull it through the press. And usually you don't get, if you want to get maybe 10 pieces originals, you have to maybe pull maybe 15 sometimes, because sometimes the inks, the temperature, the humidity affects the way the ink goes on your paper. Maybe it's, the press, maybe it's you, So the thing about it is that there are a lot of things that can go wrong, and the steps, it can happen at any of the various steps that you take. Even though you've done it many times, it's still, when you do it, it's like the first time. You know, even though you know what you're going to do, but still, it's a different film. It's burned maybe on a different day. It's prepared, you know, differently, just based on humidity and, you know, environmental conditions.
Yeah.
Like when you print in winter, it's different than when you print in summer.
Oh, I
You
love
know,
that.
so
That's wonderful.
sometimes you get on a good day, you get the ones you get the printing. You get the print going and you're like happy. And then sometimes you're like, oh my God, I just gotta wrap up and go home because it's not gonna get any better. You know, it's out of your control. Sometimes, yeah.
Touching on something that
Yeah.
you just said, you know, most people when they think of professional artists, it's a person who has like a small room in their house that's dedicated to their craft and they're whittling away deep into the night. Printmakers don't have that in their homes, right? They have labs.
Most printmakers don't, but some do have like maybe a small etching press that they can work on if they do, you know, that type of printmaking. But most printers like me, we normally go to a lab that has all the equipment that we need because it's expensive and it's also, some of the equipment are pretty big. The camera I work on is probably the size of this, the size of this platform. You know, so obviously I can't afford something like that, or I have nowhere, I don't have a dark room to house a camera like that. And then you have a huge wash down area, and then you have your press, and then you have your drying stands. So it's a whole setup that, you know, costs a lot of money. So it's easier to have a membership and go to the print shop and they maintain the equipment for you while you know, after you print.
It's like a gym membership?
Yes.
Yes. It's like a monthly
Yes.
subscription. In talking about the equipment, can you, I know this is like a really big question, can you walk us through the process of how you create your work?
Okay, I use several media to do my work. I start with photography, and in the subway performer cases, that series, I started with the New York subway down in Manhattan, and I would go down with my camera and I would ride the trains back and forth to all the platforms where I knew there would be performers and take photographs. I'd also, you know, talk to the performers. There are some performers that have permits and some that don't. The ones that have permit have got their permit usually in the spring when there's like auditions at Grand Central, and those permits are good for life. So if you have a permit, you would see if you go down the New York subway, that big pink circle that they display, that means they have a permit. The ones without it have no permits, but they're allowed to play too. You know, just don't disturb the people that come off the train. You can't block areas, you can't be too loud, but they're allowed to play, right? But so I know where I can find performers when I go to New York, and they perform by the hour. So they may not be the same performer at that same location, right? They change, and it's like changing up the guards. So you see them sometimes. But it's that. So I start with collecting my images using my camera, come home. Then I put all my images into my computer. I pick the ones I want, and I create a digital collage. And then from the digital collage now, I decide the color scheme. Sometimes it ranges from maybe 3, which is like the lady all the way to the end, to 14, which is this one, the Barcelona. And then out of my computer, I create my output for each color. Set it up, send it off to the print shop so I can get film, so they print my film out. Take the film, take to the lab, put it, burn it on a prepared screen. That's emulsion with a light-sensitive emulsion. So I print that, burn the screen, wash it out, and then I'm ready to print. And then I go to the press with that. And then I put my colors through one by one. So after you put one color through, you have to wash it off, otherwise it'll destroy your screen. Then you bring the other color on, and that's how I do it. And I'm pretty good at it because I normally stack it so that while one color is drying or one screen is drying, I'm working on another color. So, and I have to do that because I have to be really cautious of how I use my time. So I have to streamline my process so I can get a lot done in the hours I am at the print lab. And then, well, that's it. And then this is it, the output. So basically it's photography, Photoshop, and hand and silk screening on the press.
So I love the focus of like optimization and efficiency in your practice.
Yeah.
I think that it is such a wonderful addition that most people wouldn't think is like very involved in creating something that looks like this. How long does it typically take for a piece to dry?
In my case, well, you have to dry each color before you actually put another color on.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? So usually it depends. I have fans going everywhere. So there are fans on my prints that are drying, there are fans on my screens that are drying.
Oh, wow.
You know, while I'm washing down the press, while I'm cleaning up. So there's always like 3-4 things going on at the same time. So, but usually the small prints, I've done like at least 3 of them in one night.
Wow.
All night, working 24 hours, I've done 3 of them. So,
Goodness
so while,
gracious.
yeah, so for example, if I put the yellow down, I'll put yellow down on everybody. So it's like, you know, so that ink is only being used for like all 3.
Yes, yeah.
So then I would go from there, yellow to maybe blue, cyan, and then all of them would get cyan. So it was like, it's like a, what do you call it? Assembly
There
line.
you go,
Thank
an
you.
assembly
Thank
line.
you. Yes, it's like an assembly line. So,
Like
so
a
I have to work
factory.
it out. I have to work it out in my mind before I actually go to the lab what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. So I basically have an idea of what's going to happen.
So much planning.
Yeah,
Wow.
it takes a lot of planning, but if you do it long enough and often enough, it comes natural.
Well, that's why you're
Right.
very good at it, of course.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you about your composition. So while you are out taking photographs, are you building a composition for a piece in your head as you're shooting, or do you do that like when you come home and review the images that you've gotten?
No, I just shoot.
Okay, gotcha.
I just shoot. Because not all the images that I take that particular day, I might use. I may pull images that I've done maybe 2 years ago, last year, last month, yesterday, you know, and put it together. So so some of these people, they weren't around at the same time,
Yeah. Okay.
right? But the only thing I have to be careful with is whether they're wearing a summer outfit or winter outfit. So I can't, I don't put, you know, winter,
Somebody with
people
a
that
big
I
jacket.
shoot in winter with people I shot in summer.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I have, that's the only restriction, right? Everything else is game.
Helps it make it look more organic, I guess.
Right.
Interesting. Can you talk to us a little bit about your color order for pulling color through your images?
Okay, can we go to,
Yeah, sure. Do you
Okay.
want to go
Yeah.
run over there?
yeah.
I will join you from over here.
Oops. So these are the process pieces. This is always my first color when I'm doing a CMYK, which is, it's the magenta. I start with magenta, and then I pull yellow over the magenta. Then I go to blue cyan, right? And after cyan, I would pull either the black, which is a processed black. In commercial printing, that's how you print to get all colors. So even at the newspaper, you do magenta, yellow, cyan, and black. and you get all the range of colors. And then I would go to the individual colors that I want, which would be either the black, right? In this case, I just did black, a solid black. But in my performers, you would see I have solid blues and solid pinks and solid bronze and solid golds. So those are all separate colors there. So you can come up and see afterwards. And this is also the output, the film for each color. So you would think, if you don't know anything about printing, that these colors should be blue or yellow or magenta, but it's not, it's all black. Right, because with black, when you burn your screen, it blocks out the light. So wherever there is black, no color would go through on your screen. And you'd see it on the little screen that I brought there too. Yeah, wherever, yeah. I think it's underneath here, so it's kind of hard for you to see, but you can see it afterwards.
I was the one who pinned all those down under those frames, so I'm the culprit who did that. But I'm asking some of these questions because I think that it is so fascinating to hear how involved this process is, and just how, like methodical, I think is like the perfect word. It is almost right-brained as opposed to being like that creative left-brain side. And I love that you're marrying those two things together in one. How do you keep all of this stuff in order? Like, do you write this down while you're in the shop, or what does that look like?
Yes, I write it down, especially if it's something unusual. Like, for example, the order of colors, I write it down when I'm outputting my film, when I'm on my computer. Okay. So normally I would remember it, but maybe a year from now I won't. So it's like, not that I want to print it again, but just in case something went wrong, that I did something different to correct it, I would know if I go back to my notes. I should have brought my little black book with me, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's like, we have to do a real artist talk for you guys to see the black book. So I know that, you just stood up, but do you want to try to do the demo now?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to start it? I had you walk all the way back over here, but.
This is the screen. And it's Grand Central, the clock. Right, so we're going to put some paper down here. On the sides. Yeah, on the sides. And cut some more so that we'll have for the other paper. Okay? Tonight we're just going to do a black screen. We won't do all 14. Okay, okay, that's it. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Oh, where's my other? I did it. Thank you. Okay, who's done self screening before? Anybody here? Many years ago. Okay. Okay, we have to do more. Okay. Because we have 1, 2, 5.
No, just turn this apart.
Okay. So now we're gonna put. The paper is on, the screen is down, and the ink is in. So what you're going to do, you're going to press, and then just pull it towards you, to this end. Okay, so you hold down, press hard, and pull it, pull. Stop. Okay, good. Okay, lift it. Right, so that's it. You want to take it off?
Yeah, of
Yeah, you
course.
can take your gloves off.
Yes.
Yeah, at least one hand. Okay, just put it on the side.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Careful you don't get the ink on you. It's still
Yeah, then it's still wet, so
That's
let's
fine.
just put it on the side there to dry, okay? On there, over there. Yeah. This is water-based. That's why it dries fast.
Is that what you use for all of your prints?
Yes, yes. Yeah, oil is a little tricky, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, you would know too. But,
Was that a decision based on cost or on health, like toxicity concerns?
Kind of more cost, cost effective. And I like, the toxicity element too. Obviously you want something that's good for the environment. But as an artist, a lot of times the cost factor, determines what I would do. I mean, there's a lot of artists and the print shop I work with, Frontline Arts, they are very environmentally conscious. So a lot of the inks and a lot of the material they use tend to be earth-friendly, environmental friendly. That's not an issue for me in particular because I do small editions. Yes, they do. In fact, I use screens that have holes in them. I just don't burn the image where the hole is, but yeah, the screens are expensive. So when I'm burning my image, I make sure that it's away from the areas that are damaged, but if they still work, I still use it, But in terms of, well, this is not really an edition, but it's just the deterioration of the material.
I want to jump right into your background.
Oh, boy.
This is a big part of the conversation. So you grew up in the West Indies and Trinidad and Tobago. Can you give us a little bit on your early life there?
Okay. I grew up in the islands, and actually I was raised in a kitchen. My dad had a food truck, and my parents ran a cafeteria at a high school, so they were always working, all day and night. So they would even take us to the catering events that they went to, that they had to provide the food for. So they would stick. I'm the middle child, so they would stick the three of us in this Volkswagen cargo van with a mattress, and we would sleep there while they did the parties. So this would be usually around carnival time, which was February, March. So we slept at these parties. We grew up also working, helping. I'd say helping because we were really young. Helping it around, either prepping the food in the kitchen or selling the food on the food trucks.
Wow.
Right, so with the money I got, that was like our allowance. If we wanted more, we worked more, right? But we were only allowed to work on Friday nights after school or Saturdays, so that's the only time you could make, extra money.
Peak hours.
Right, and not during school, obviously, right? So I would take my money, and almost every Friday after school, I would go to the bookstore and look at all the picture books. So I'd spend like maybe half an hour or more, depending on what time it was, and look through the picture books. But there weren't no art books. There were science books about animals. There was storybooks, but I can't remember any art books. So anyways, I would save my money and I would buy my favorite book. And I I was such a frequent visitor that the clerk knew who I was and would bring out the new books so I could look at the new books, right? So that was kind of cool. And as I said, my parents worked really hard and really long hours, so they never knew what we did after school, right? I would just get home on time for dinner, so that was the thing, right? So any after-school activities, we had to figure out how to get there and how to go about getting involved in it, because my parents never knew, wasn't around to help us, right? So I decided I wanted to be a Girl Scout, and I also decided I wanted to be a member of this organization called Legion of Mary, and it had to do with community service. And the members, which I was a part of, we would go visit the orphanage and play with the kids, and we'd also go to the hospital, to the kids' ward, and entertain them, right? So I did that after school. I also did the Girl Scouts, and I somehow managed to reach the highest level, and back in Trinidad, it's called the President's Award level. And when I got there, I went to the president's house, and he gave me my award, which was kind of cool. So between going to the bookstore and doing all these things, my parents never knew where I was. I was just doing stuff, and then telling them, oh, by the way, we have to go to the president's house, and by the way, we have to, I'm going on camp next week for a whole week, So, but that was part of my childhood, Wow. So anyways, after they worked so hard that it was incredible that they even had time to take care of us. But they did. In fact, I could remember when my mom made all our clothes, handmade our clothes, hand sewed our clothes. At Christmas time, we did our little gift list, what we wanted from Santa, but we knew exactly what we were going to get for Christmas, and it was going to be either a prayer book or a rosary. It was okay, but we still made our little list to Santa. But we got a prayer book and we got a rosary. It was like, what did you get? Oh, okay, right? But my mom comes from a family of 7 siblings, and her 2 younger siblings used to come around midnight, Christmas Eve, and drop off presents. So we really thought there was a Santa, because
He was Catholic.
right. And I think I believe in Santa for a little too long. I was maybe about 12, still believing in Santa Claus. It was crazy because I got gifts on Christmas Day that, I knew my mom and my dad didn't buy, right? So it must have come from Santa, right? So that was cute. And then actually that same uncle taught us when we were 7, 8 how to play poker and how to play blackjack for pennies, right? So he would come, he was single at the time, and he would come, he's like, okay, come guys, let's play a game, rounds, and we would play lose or drink water. So we would always be drinking water and always going to the bathroom, and he would laugh, But it was a lot of fun when he came.
Wow.
Right, and then we also had, I said my mom made our clothes, and she made our school bags, and we decorated it with anything we wanted, right, to individualize it. And she also, my mom's a little crazy, but this is a good crazy, because she would make, when we were in elementary school, she made lunch for us every single day. And she didn't drive, so she would have to take a taxi and come to our school and drop the lunch off, because she wanted us to have a hot lunch, right? So we had rice and chicken and vegetables, and everybody else was eating a little sandwich, And my teachers got so jealous that my mom started to bring them food too, So we would, and then she would always be late. She's known for, so I would be waiting for her for my lunch, and then by the time she got there, I would have to go to the teacher's lounge to eat by myself. Oh, no. You know, because it was past lunchtime. Right? And what else? We also, we went to Catholic school, right? So it was elementary and high school, all Catholic school, all girls schools, right? And she would, yeah, so they actually did, it was a pretty, I told you about diversity. So there was diversity in the schools, there was diversity in my neighborhood, there was diversity among our friends. Even in my family, there's diversity in the extended family, right? So, I mean, I grew up, diversity was normal to me, right? And education was very important too.
Yes, it
Right.
sounds like that.
Education is very important. And the choices were doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. No artist on that list, right? But I drew my way through elementary school and high school while trying to become an archaeologist. But obviously that didn't happen. So my parents raised two engineers, a business owner, and an artist. And I think it's actually amazing because knowing my dad and his background and where he came from, and he understood that education was important. I give him a lot of credit because he was illiterate. My dad was illiterate. He came from China when he was 14 years old. His parents put him on a cruise ship to escape the Civil War, along with 4 other boys.
Wow.
And they were all firstborn. So those families put their firstborn son on this cruise ship, and they heard he had an uncle in Trinidad. So they sent him down to the islands.
Wow.
So he came down not knowing how to speak English, not knowing where he was going, not knowing this uncle, you know, and that's how he got to Trinidad.
Wow.
So being illiterate and coming from where he came from, it's amazing that he raised his kids, you know, to get a good education.
Absolutely.
And also, I'd always remember that he's always said, you know what, you can have all the money in the world, right? But money can't buy a good name, right? So what we were expected to do, and we try, is to honor the family's name. You know, you don't get into trouble and drag the family's name through mud, you know, because you could never get that clean again. So that was a good lesson that he taught us.
On the topic of your father, you have a really wonderful story about how you got to art school in the United States. Can you share that with us?
Yes, my dad, when I told him I wanted to go to art school, he said, artists don't make money until they die. So I knew he wasn't gonna help me, right? I know my mom, obviously, she wasn't gonna help me either, because, you know, they have very little money to go around anyways. So I worked in the bank I was a bank teller for 3 years, saved money. I saved, I think, about $10,000 US. Back then it was a lot. It's still a lot now.
Still a lot.
And I heard that this woman, this recruiter, was gonna be at one of the hotels recruiting students for this art school, private art school in Miami. So I went and I visited her, and I got all the information, all the paperwork, got my visa, my US visa at the embassy, enrolled, and I had just enough money for 1 year. So I told my dad, my parents, I'm going to school for 1 year. I don't know what's gonna happen after that year, but at least I'm gonna follow my dream, and I'm gonna go to art school, you know, because I can't get it here in Trinidad. There were no art schools in Trinidad, right? So I was packed and ready for like maybe a month before I even left. I was living out of my suitcase, you know, already. I bought my ticket, everything, you know, I was ready to go. And came up to the International Fine Arts School in Miami, and I was there for like a year. I stayed for a year. In high school, I was like a B student, but art school, I was top of my class. I was winning all the awards. I was placing first in my class, first, second, whatever, and doing really well and having a good time. So I was living the life. I was living my dream. And when my dad realized, oh, she's really, doing what she wants to do, and she's doing well, and everything's going good, and she's really gung-ho on this, and, he said, okay, stay, I'll put you through another year so you can get your associate's degree in graphic design. So he did that. And then, to my surprise, he tells me, enroll in the university now, study whatever you want to study. Right? I'm like, oh, okay, great. Somehow, he found the money and he put me through the rest of to four-year college. He sent me to the four-year college where I studied art this time, printmaking, right? And I did that for 2 years and came away with a BFA in printmaking. But I think the real reason why he wanted me to continue studying was that he didn't want me to come back to marry my boyfriend, who was still in Trinidad. So he figured, okay, distance would take care of that, So somehow, and it didn't happen. I didn't go back to Trinidad. I didn't get married to my now ex-boyfriend. Right. In fact, I found my husband at the University of FIU, Florida International University. Yeah, we did an environmental class together, and that's how we met.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you think that growing up in the islands has impacted your practice? You mentioned diversity there.
I think it does subconsciously, because when I got here, there was a lot of talk about race and things like that, and I'm like, this is America, this is the U.S., that's what's the problem, right? But coming from a small island where diversity is in your face, and you think nothing of it, it's like, okay, you see people's perspective from different angles, and I think personally for me, I kind of can relate to it, right? So it's easier for me in my art practice when it comes to, like, for example, talking to these people down in the subway, and not feeling weird or feeling as though they won't talk to me, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I know you asked me about putting different people together if I specifically pick the races, and I don't. I just, if you have a nice expression that I like, I put you in, It doesn't have to be, the color of your skin or anything like that. If I like the way your expression is or the angle or something, that's what gets you into my pieces. So, but I have a soft spot for women,
Yes.
because in this industry it's so male dominated that when you find a performer that's a woman, to me it's a thrill. So I usually try and get my images, take my photographs that I need, and use the female as the forefront figure, which you'd probably see in some of the smaller pieces. And actually, I have a huge painting with La Cantora, the piece from Havana, and she is beautiful. So I try to portray women when I see women in my, if I can put a woman in my series.
Yeah.
I look for women. I don't look for race. I look for gender.
Interesting. You work in more than just printmaking, but you're also an installation artist, which we touched on in your bio, and an extremely skilled painter. I would highly recommend that you all look into Chee's paintings. They are so moving and breathtaking, of similar subject matter and others that are displayed here today. Why is practicing in different artistic mediums important to you?
Well, it first started out of need, because after leaving college, I couldn't find a press to work on, to continue printmaking.
Oh.
So it came out of need, right? At least the initial part of it. So I started painting. And I started to work on my technique and my getting comfortable with the paint, right? And then from there on, I decided I'd like to try, mixed media or put in what is called bricolage, which is putting together found objects and doing what is needed to actually pull the image together. So I started doing that maybe about when my son was a baby. Well, he's 17 now, so that's a long time ago. But I started to work small because when you have a small kid, you can't leave your things out, right? Otherwise, you get into it. And he's done that a few times. Come back and there's like streaks on my paintings in red. No. Hey, look what I did.
Oh, no.
Even though he had his own canvas, he wanted to work on mine,
it's a collaboration.
right? So all that was put away, and I started to work small, and I started to work on bricolage pieces, which are found pieces, and I really, really enjoyed it. At first I was afraid to say go out of my wheelhouse, right? But I really enjoyed it. So I started to put that together, and all these ideas started to come into my head, and I keep like boxes of stuff, right? Like all other artists. You have boxes of stuff that you're going to use one day, and it's like 10 years later and it's still there, right?
It hasn't come yet.
Yeah, but actually that did develop into something because I have a piece I call a fertility series that's done in bricolage too, and that's a combination of all the fertility drugs and stuff that's used in the fertility process that I have personally.
Wow.
So I created a whole series on that, and that led me to an installation, which I think it's like the climax of what I do.
Yeah.
Right. So it led me to an installation piece that I did in New York in 2017. It's called The Zygote Garden, and this was a multimedia interactive installation piece, and it was my interpretation of a womb and the zygotes hanging in the middle, and people coming in and experiencing that feeling. There was I also had like a soundtrack of the womb going, so it was, people said they felt really comfortable, which is kind of weird.
Immersive.
I guess because it was a familiar sound. Who knows, of being back in the womb and being, cared for, I guess, or being, in a secure place.
Beautiful.
Right, but it was awesome. In fact, I had they still remember it. The people that did the event still remember it. I spoke to somebody last month about it. I mean, and she said, "Oh, you're the one that did the womb." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh my God, everybody's still talking about it," And I'm like, "Great."
That's the best feedback as an artist, when you like wiggle into somebody's head and then they find
and
you
they can't
later
come
on.
out.
Yes, yeah, and they haven't gotten it out yet. I want to talk to you about, you have this really beautiful fascination with capturing the passion and essence and just of your subjects and in their faces. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think it's because I use a camera, it's a good tool to capture the moment. And then I take a lot of photographs, so with the photographs I can see, maybe which one really captured the moment. But in my subway pieces, my goal is to recreate that intoxicating feeling I had when I first visited the New York subway. It's like really mind-blowing. So I try to recreate that feeling, which is the claustrophobic feeling you get, but yet the hustle and the noise and the colors, you know. So that's why my subway pieces are so maybe congested, because that's how I felt, and I hope that's what the viewer gets when they look at it. That there's so much going on,
Yeah.
and there really is a lot going on.
It's like
you
a
know?
bombardment.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and just to even piggyback off of what you said, you just led me into my next question perfectly. You know, your work is so alive, and you really play up like texture and color and just the unique features of the places that you go to. Can you discuss a little bit of your favorite motifs that you add into your pieces, and is there anything that you like sneak in there that you have to kind of look for, or?
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Oh yes,
No, thank you, because that's exactly what I want to portray in these pieces. And the motifs, I think in this particular series, the Subway series, the motif that I use over and over is the subway map. And you can find it in the background, or you can find it in their clothes. Like in the trio, it's in their clothes, if you look really carefully.
Oh wow.
Right? I also insert my husband, right? It's not in any of these right now. And my son, you can find him in
I love that.
the Grand Central piece with
Okay,
him.
yeah.
And also the one I did, Ode to Oscar. You can find my friend's name, her husband, who is a grandson of Oscar Hammerstein, and their baby, and their little son, Oscar.
Oh, I love that.
So you can find their names in it, in that piece.
You know, I just love the fact that you add in the maps. It's such a real tie-in in your work. You're also very conscious of your environment, you know, and just observing small details, which many artists are. Have you always been interested in that kind of little intricate things that people normally brush past?
I think it's because I've always been curious about everything. And I always want to know why, when, how, where. And I think I wore my mom out, you know, with the questions, right? So I think that has helped me in my daily life, and also being observant, you know, little things, people, their moods, you know, what to say in certain environments, you know, how people may react.
Yeah.
It's helped me in my daily life, and it's also helped me as an artist, you know, because sometimes you take pictures and you think, okay, I'm going to use this one, this one, and this one, but then you look, you said, wait now, what about this one? You know, I took this one and it has certain elements that I want, that I want to use.
Yeah.
So then, you know, you kind of like,
Yeah.
subconsciously, you see things after the fact.
Yeah.
So, if not on site, but yeah, I like to watch. I mean, I like to observe. You know, and I tend to be. I always tell people, or in fact, I always tell my husband, I'm very meticulous when I say something, I mean it. I just don't rant
Yes,
off. You know,
yeah.
I'm very precise.
Very
when
purposeful.
It comes, very purposeful.
Yes.
You know, so if I say, I really don't like you, I really don't. You know,
I mean it.
I really mean it. You know, no, usually I won't say anything.
You know, you mentioned your working in graphic design, and this is something that I think plagues a lot of artists and is a big topic if you are an artist, but maybe not if you are a normal person who spends their time doing things that they enjoy and don't hate. What is the transition like going from commercial work mode to fine art work mode? How does that work?
I've always seen myself as a fine artist. So that transition from commercial to fine arts back to commercial is not a problem for me. In fact, I probably try to do too much fine arts in my commercial art, you know? And like my husband said, back in the past, it's like, you're getting paid for it, it doesn't belong to you, just do it.
Yeah.
You know? Right? Just do what they want, okay? And don't put your feelings into it, because it's not a piece of fine art, okay? When you do your fine art, you can you can, react like that. But
Yeah.
when it comes to commercial work, it's somebody's paying for it, it's sold, just do it and let it go.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to go back to fine arts from commercial art. And it's actually a little bit harder to go from the fine arts to the commercial art.
Oh, wow.
Because, but it's not a problem. I mean, I've been doing it for so many years that it's, you just switch on and off, right? So that's what I would tell people is just, wait, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Right?
When we first sat down, you talked about within your own work being like the most difficult customer to please. Can you talk a little bit about that idea? I think that's very relatable to many people.
Yeah, I'm probably my worst and best critic, like I think most artists are. And usually if I'm not happy with something, I just don't show it. But if I'm happy with it, I can put it out, and I know that there's going to be an audience that's going to like it too. But I don't worry about it that much. I mean, I just try and do what I like, and if it comes out close to what I want, or even what I want, then it's done.
Yeah.
Right.
Something that's a phenomenal segue to one of my favorite things about you, Chee. You have this focus in your work, and not only in your work but also in your life, on setting realistic goals and with like attacking them with this fearless determination. Can you talk a little bit about that and where that comes from?
I think I've always had that problem with myself.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, but I'll take like shoot for the moon, land on the stars, that Norman Vincent Peale saying. I kind of swapped it with the shoot for the moon, shoot for the stars, land in the moon. But it's something like that. But just shoot high, just aim high, and if you fall a little short, it's okay, it's not bad, right? So I would say big dreams, dream big, and just go for it, right? If there is a little space to get in there, just go, just squeeze yourself in and go, So and it also came out of like really wanting something badly, finding a way for it. And just leaping off the cliff, right? And I also have this formula that I use. It's a 51-49 ratio. So if it feels like 51, it's right. You do it. Right? If it's 49, maybe you think about it a little bit more. So I've always, when I come to a dilemma, I use that. I'm like 51-49. Which one is it? 51. I'm going, and I'm not coming back. So. And also, I think it's also because when I was 17 years old, I had temporary paralysis. And that took me like almost 2 weeks to recover from it.
Wow.
Right? And I think at that young age, when something like that happens to you, you realize life is not forever. It's too short. And I think after having that experience, I wake up every day and I think, I make the best of it, and then I try not to live life without regret. So you just keep positive, right? And I think the weird thing too is that my parents never took me to a doctor. I was paralyzed for almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
I woke up one morning after studying until like 1 in the morning.
Wow.
And my entire body started to shake. I laid down the next morning. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up to go to school. My parents didn't have money. And my mom said that happened to her when she was in school. So she knew what to do. I'm like, okay. My parents took care of everything. They were like into herbs and things like that. And the only thing we got was shots. Or if you broke your leg, then you go to the hospital. But she nursed me back to full health. And since that time, I've always been conscious of taking care of myself. So I don't do drugs. I don't need to. Right? I get high on different things. Right? And I think just having that experience kind of gave me also give me that drive
Yeah.
to like go out there. You want something, you go get it. If it's gonna help you, if it's gonna enhance your life, if it's gonna enhance the people you love, you go and you get it. You know, and you kind of, you just put it all out,
Yeah.
right? And if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If it doesn't, well, you know what? It didn't happen, so you go somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? Plan B,
Yeah.
right? You always have a plan.
So you get the 49% sometimes, but not
Yes.
all the times. Yes, that's what matters. I love that even in your attempt at trying to solve problems in your own life, you're still using like percentages
Yeah.
to map that out. You know, it still speaks to this very right-brained, methodical process that we've been kind of going through. Well, I want to ask you. You have this is going to take a little bit of time. You have a lot going on. Not just this, but in the future. Can you tell us what's next? Where can we find you next? Where will you be?
Okay, presently I'm in actually 4 group shows. There's the Phillips Mill Art Exhibition in New Hope, the Arts and Cultural Council in Doylestown.
Okay.
I have to take work up to upstate New York, and then today I got an email from Art Pier 14C that I was accepted into their show.
Oh, wonderful.
So I have that's the 4th one. And also I'm working on, I have 2 installations. And one is due in November in New York for the Trishama Gala.
Okay.
And that one is called Free Me, the Ritual, and that's a totally multimedia piece also, that's also interactive. And I also have one on the back burner, which is called Our Labyrinth, and that's one based on suffrage of women in the U.S. And I thought it needed to be contemporized, you know, instead of what they have in the National Women's Museum in Virginia. I think it's Virginia, yeah. And that actually was inspired by an artist that I love. His name is James Turrell, and he works with light, and it's so beautiful. I mean, his work. In fact, I saw him at the Guggenheim in 2013, and they transformed the entire atrium into this light show, which was incredible. So everybody was laying on the floor, you know, looking up
Wow.
all those floors to the ceiling, and the lights changed, and it had this really ethereal feel, you know, that it was so zen. And after seeing his work and following him for a while, this idea came into my head that, yeah, we need to raise these women up, you know, and give them this feeling of what you call eternity of something, you know, that comes with the
Memorialize
use of,
them?
Yeah, memorialize them, you know, so I have this whole thing planned out, and hopefully when I apply for the Guggenheim grant again this year, this would be the 3rd time. It would be the charm, and maybe I'd get it. You know, who knows? I mean, in this climate right now, women's rights are like, you know, into the forefront again.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe it'd be the right timing, the right installation. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, if there's anybody out there who's interested, or who knows anybody else who's interested, we can talk afterwards.
She has cards over there too. Okay, well, so wow, you have a lot going on. So how is it that we can keep up with all of this? Where can we find you? Social media, website?
Yes, social media. You can go to my website. I have some information there, and you can always, find Mickey.
You can find me.
Yeah.
Yes, I can tell you where she is. We communicate constantly. We always know each other's whereabouts. Yeah, well, and she also does have some cards over there. I would highly recommend that you guys be sure to follow her on Instagram. And also, we have been recording this event, so be sure to check out the Grounds for Sculpture YouTube as well, which is where this will be, and all of the other programs that we'll be doing out until 2022. Yeah, thank you so much, Chee. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And a very warm thank you to Julio Vidal, who is the Experimental Programs Manager here at Grounds for Sculpture. Bill Nobes, who is the gentleman in the back, he is our production manager for this project. He is with House of Robot and is a joy to work with, and it will help us get all of this up on the internet for you guys to share with your friends. And I also want to thank the Grounds for Sculpture and the Stuart Johnson Atelier too, and all of you guys for coming out tonight. Thank you so much.